All right, let's jump in. Senator Kennedy didn't waste a second grilling Judge Nancy Abudu during her confirmation hearing. He was on a mission, straight up asking if she understood basic constitutional doctrines like adequate and independent state grounds or selective incorporation. Judge Abudu, she admitted she hadn't really used those before. For a federal judge nominee, that's a big yikes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Judge, Ms. Abudu, congratulations. I want to just talk to you, at least initially, a little bit about the law. Ms. Abudu, what's the adequate and independent state grounds doctrine?
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
You're welcome.
In my practice, I actually haven't had an opportunity to use that principle or doctrine, but my general understanding is that it speaks to the fact that if a federal court is able to resolve an issue based on state law grounds, then that is what should lead in terms of the court's ultimate decision.
Okay. What is the selective incorporation doctrine?
That also, in the voting rights or civil rights context, is a term that I haven't had to come across. But what I do know is that as a legal research and writer, and for sure confronting possibly new areas of law, I look very forward to doing my due diligence in terms of making sure I'm familiar with doctrines such as that one.
Then, Kennedy pivoted, hard, wanting to know if she thought the Constitution's meaning is set in stone, or if it morphs with the times. Judge Abudu played it safe. She said she'd follow the Supreme Court, start with the text, and stick with precedent. But Kennedy pushed for more. He wanted her personal philosophy, not just a textbook answer. Things got heated when Kennedy dug into her past work at the Southern Poverty Law Center. He quoted reports she'd signed off on, phrases like racist white Southerners and hostile white voters.
Do you know what it is?
So no, I'm not familiar with it sitting here today.
Incorporation doctrine? Okay. Well, you're going to see a lot of it if you're confirmed on the 11th Circuit. Can Congress pass any law that the Constitution doesn't prohibit?
Based on the frame of your question, I would say yes, that sounds right.
So you think Congress has plenary power?
Well, I would first look to what the Supreme Court has said in terms of following precedent.
No, but I'm interested, if I could, Counselor, in your opinion, does the United States Congress have delegated powers or plenary power?
Well, the Congress has both, I would say, from my general understanding. Again, it depends on the context and the issue, but
Okay.
it is.
Can you explain the difference to me between strict scrutiny and intermediate scrutiny?
Senator, strict scrutiny is the highest level of scrutiny that's often applied in constitutional cases.
What's the definition? I'm sorry, go ahead. Excuse me.
So it requires that a state, when enacting a law or regulation, have a compelling governmental interest for doing so, and that the law is narrowly tailored to achieve that interest.
Okay.
And then intermediate, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so intermediate speaks to the issue of having a substantial interest or that is, or an important governmental interest that is substantially related.
Okay. Do you believe that the meaning of the Constitution is immutable, or does it change over time?
Senator, I would say that the Supreme Court in some cases has analyzed that issue, and the response really does depend on the context and the issue. But what the court does or has done in its approach, of course, is look to the plain meaning of a statute or of the Constitution, because that really is where the inquiry should start. And if the language is plain, then that is where the inquiry can end.
Okay, thank you for that. You were involved in a 2021 report from the Southern Poverty Law Center about voting in Louisiana.
Abudu tried to distance herself, saying she didn't write those lines, just reviewed the reports. But when Kennedy asked for proof, specific polling places she claimed were threatening to black voters, she couldn't name a single one. And then, voter ID, this is where sparks really flew. Kennedy read from another SPLC report, quoting Abudu saying voter ID laws are burdensome and have no legitimate state interest. She wouldn't confirm or deny her statement without the report in front of her, but Kennedy did not let up.
Did you say, quote, racist white Southerners, close quote, and, quote, hostile white voters and governmental officials in Louisiana continue to make local polling places and early voting locations threatening spaces for black voters? Did you say that?
Senator, I do not believe that I said that. I haven't read that publication in some time.
Will you help write it?
I helped to draft the publication and approved it, but I'm not familiar with that language.
You don't? Okay. In that same report, did you say, well, tell me where in Louisiana local polling places and early voting locations are threatening African-American voters? You said it, so which polling places?
So again, Senator, obviously I don't have that report in front of me to be able to read and remind myself of the examples that might have been shared. But what I can say is that Louisiana—
Let me cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, Counselor.
The examples that might have been shared, but what I can say is that Louisiana—
Let me cut you off because I'm going to run out of time, Counselor. Let me ask you one more. In August 2021, we're not talking 20 years ago, we're talking 2021, you were involved in another report by the SPLC, and you said that voter identification, photo ID to vote, is burdensome and does not serve any legitimate state interest.
He wanted to know, does she still believe that? Her answer? She'll uphold the Supreme Court, but what about her own view? She never gave it. So, why does this matter? Because these hearings show us who's interpreting our rights from the bench. When nominees dodge basic questions, it's a red flag. If you want real talk, not headlines, hit subscribe right now. Judge Abudu's confirmation hearing was anything but boring. Kennedy came in swinging, and her answers, or lack of them, will stick with voters long after.
Do you really believe that?
Senator, identification for voting is something—
Yes, but first, do you really believe that? You said it. You meant it?
The Supreme Court in Crawford v. Marion County has already upheld voter ID laws as per se
Yeah, but you said it didn't serve any legitimate state interest. Do you believe that?
Again, Senator, without that language in front of me, it's hard to understand the context.
You said it. Here it is, August 2021.
Well, there are cases—
I'm just asking you to explain to me why having to prove you are who you say you are before you vote doesn't serve— you said it doesn't serve any legitimate state interest. I'm just asking to explain that statement to me.
I understand, Senator Kennedy, and again, without being able to see the language that appears before and after, it's hard for the context.
You deny that you said it?
I can't say that I haven't seen that language in front of me, but what I do know is that there have been voter ID cases in which courts have found that—
I know, I'm familiar with the case law, but I'm asking what you think, because you may be on the 11th Circuit. Do you believe that voter ID is inappropriate?
My commitment is to uphold the Supreme Court's decision in Crawford v. Marion County.
I know, but here you said it was inappropriate. You deny that?
Well, again, Senator, it would be helpful to know if that section of the report also cites to cases in which federal courts have found that certain voter ID laws do pose a burden on voters.
Thank you, Senator Kennedy.
Do you think Kennedy went too far? Or was he just doing his job? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and share for more breakdowns just like this. See you next time.